I'm Corbitt with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, November the 3rd, brought to you in part by Macrocin by Bimeda. Macrocin is proven efficacy at an affordable upfront price, always with no gimmicks or tricks on how they're pricing that product. It's as cheap as they can get it up front, works good. For more information, go to macrocin.com. Also, Joplin Regional Stockyards in Carthage, Missouri. They're expecting 5,500 here on Monday. The sale's going to start at 7 o'clock in the morning. That's kind of a late start for them, especially with the time change. But it'll be a good sale. They'll have a well-rounded market. All your weights and classes will be tested well. A lot of yearlings in there. They're going to have a special cow sale this Thursday at 4:30 p.m. And it's going to be a pretty good sized one too, I think, guys. They got some other specials coming up on November the 21st. They're going to have a Show Me Select Replacement Heifer sale. That'll be an evening sale. December the 4th, they're going to have, they always have a value added sale there in early December. Those will be all long-time weaned cattle, been through the program, the JRS program, have the vaccinations and be long-time weaned. Before that, on November the 24th, they'll be having a yearling special. They always get a big run of yearlings for that. So for more information about what's going on at Joplin, go to joplinstockyards.com. If you want to view and bid any of their auctions, go on to DVAuction.com. Back to fundamentals. After 2 weeks really of the cattle drama going on, and you know, with your cattle markets and beef markets being in the front page of the paper and on the headline news and all that kind of thing, we're ready to go back to fundamentals. Our markets are so sensitive, we can't handle being out front like that, and there's so few people that know and understand these cattle markets and how this cattle deal works with you know, with the packers. You know, we don't need to try to inform them because they can't understand it, they don't really want to. And when we start talking about beef and it being out there in front, and then they start talking about foreign beef and you know, the quality levels and such, it just scares people. And it scares our CME cattle futures because most of the people that are dealing in that don't know anything about cattle markets either. So it scares them. Everything that happens is a negative to the cattle market. Just about everything. You know, yeah, tight numbers are positive, but anything that goes on, there's not another commodity market out there that reacts negatively to just about everything that goes on in the world, but your cattle markets do, and we can't take it out there being in the front because we're just too vulnerable for that market to go down, because we're counting on all of those fund managers and those investment funds to hold that thing up, because like I always say, us as an industry are enough downers for the market with everybody hedging. And then this last week, whenever the market started falling on the Trump tweets and all that, that was a lot of pressure. We knew we'd been riding over our skis here for a long time. People hadn't took their LRPs out. A lot of people started getting their LRPs for protection against the market. I've had a lot of those LRP riders say their insurance companies don't lay off all that on the board. I know that some of them got to be lying at least, so that's a lot of pressure on the board too, whenever those insurance companies are laying off all that risk. It was just a rough couple of weeks there, but by late week, and especially by Friday, people were kind of coming out of it a little bit. We started seeing our calves pick up a little more steam. They were still lower than the previous week, but they weren't nearly as low as the early week sales compared to a week ago. So that was kind of give us some hope there. And yearling market was good. I'm going to give you all some really impressive yearling prices here fat cattle market finally came to life for your late sellers there on Friday. It was kind of a screwy deal there. Late Friday, your fat cattle market in the Southern Plains, they had traded some cattle at 235 after the Fed Cattle Exchange had reached 235.50 on Thursday. And then packers wanted to buy some more cattle at 235. Couldn't get that done on Friday. That's a heck of a premium to the Northern Plains, which sold mostly 230 to 232. So was asking quite a bit, the packers thought, but they wanted more money. Then Friday, the Fed Cattle Exchange kicked it off again. Fed Cattle Exchange is transparent, it's competitive. You guys should look into it. You know, it doesn't cost that much to get your cattle into some competitive bidding there. But they sold some cattle at 236, bid the grid in Texas. A lot of times your negotiated live weight cattle sell that way too, all the same as bid the grid after they have that. And then we saw some 236 bids in Kansas. They had been bid 236 and they passed it. So that tipped the packers' hand there. Then later on the day, I know in Kansas, and I assume in Texas also, we had packers paying 236 plus 1. And you think, what's that? What's 236 plus 1? Well, it's 237. And you say, well, what's up with the plus 1? Your packers don't want that 237 showing in these mandatory price reporting market reports that the government puts out, because it will increase the price on the weighted averages. So they don't want that coming out in the negotiated trade. They can call it 236 plus 1. That makes it a formula. By definition, through mandatory price reporting rules there, that makes it a formula, and then it won't be in that negotiated report that your formula sales are priced off of. That's how crooked that they are, guys. I mean, we see them settling these cases, you know, where they've been manipulating prices and all this, and I don't understand why people don't realize that that's a big deal. And you know, we see them, you know, haul cattle $4 or $5 or $6 a hundred away from an area to keep from increasing the price in that area, because it'd be kind of short on cattle like they have been here lately in the Southern Plains. Nobody thinks that's a big deal. I think that's unfair trade practice. And then this, they are manipulating the reported price for their benefit. You know, but when everybody knows it, and you know, of course, who are we going to get something to do about it? The packers and stockyards? Yeah, right. There's not really even a packers and stockyards now. They've slimmed that down so much, but the whole time that they've had them, ever since the old stockyard days, they were worthless as tits on a boar hog. They just call people and tell them to raise or lower their bond. They never really went after anybody. And you know, it's frustrating that this kind of stuff happens, but that's really, you know, what we're facing here. And it was encouraging that Secretary of Ag Brooke Rollins did an interview with a major network over the weekend, and they were asking her about what was going on, and she mentioned you know, the oligarchy we have with the four packers dominating the business. And it's good to know that we at least have somebody that knows what's going on in there. Now, whether or not they'll do anything about it, I don't know. Many of you knew that I had a big weekend this last weekend. My oldest daughter got married, and it was absolutely fantastic. And thanks everybody for the kind words, and a lot of people sent messages that were encouraging and things. After my last report there, where I was a little bit frustrated with not necessarily negative comments, that's okay, but when people make their own personal posts on social media and then edit out, you know, 10 seconds of one of my 20-minute videos about one particular thing I said that they didn't like, that's over, guys. They can't do that. Or they do it, and I can't do anything about it, but it ain't right. But I tell you what, probably one of the best days of my life happened on Saturday. It was a beautiful wedding. Everything went as planned, and the weather was absolutely perfect. When she mentioned a November 1st wedding day, I remember all the times we've had ice storms and snowstorms in Amarillo on Halloween. But this past November the 1st here over the weekend, it was absolutely beautiful. It was probably 60 degrees with sunshine, so it wasn't cold, and not a puff of wind in Amarillo, Texas, guys. How many times do you see that? But like I say, I was very excited about that wedding. Let's talk about your board for last week. December live cattle futures, we're moved on to December now. Monday was down 6.75. Tuesday was down 60 cents. Wednesday was up 4.32. Thursday was up 20 cents. And Friday down 1.42. With your December contract ending the week at 229.67, down 4 1/4 for the week. Now your February contract ended the week at 227.65. November feeder cattle, the October contract settled at 347 1/4 with that cash settlement against your CME feeder cattle index there. And I'm starting to think that maybe a cash settlement on our live cattle contract would be better than the delivery process that nobody uses and doesn't work that well. And but what the heck is the price for cattle? You know, I just showed you how they manipulate what's reported for the price of cattle, so where are we going to get that? But November feeder cattle, Monday was down 13.75, Tuesday was down 5.05, Wednesday was up 8.67, just whipsawing back and forth everywhere. Thursday down 1/4, and Friday down 2.95. November contracts ended the week at 338.87. That was down 13.33 for the week. January contracts ended the week at 331.90. Look at your grains. They were all positive with the deals that Trump was making over in China. Corn for December contracts, they're still the most heavily traded month. 431.5. That was up 8 1/4 for the week. January beans ended the week at 11.15 1/4, up 55 for the week. Big gains there. Hard red winter wheat ended at 524.5, up 23. Your fat cattle market, as I mentioned earlier, was kind of screwy there at the end of the week, but through Thursday they'd sold 37,000 head. Fat steers and heifers sold from 228 to 235.50. That was $4 to $5 lower. Weighted average up through Thursday was 230.02 for live steers. Dress market was from 355 to 365, $8 to $10 lower. Your weighted average on dress steers was 358.49. Now that'll all change after we get the Friday information in there. And what we know of on Friday, confirmed, Iowa sold 1,300 head. They sold 15,850 for the week. Live price in Iowa on Friday was $230 live and $360 dressed. Nebraska sold 2,300 confirmed on Friday, 23,400 for the week. Live price $230 to $232, and that was about $3 to $5 lower in the Northern Plains live and about $7 to $10 lower dressed. Kansas sold 300 head confirmed and 1,000 for the week. I mean, still nothing, and that was up to 2 o'clock. And your live price at that point was $235. But I told you after they had that afternoon Fed cattle exchange sale, and the packers were really lax about getting that information in. So we didn't get any of that information, and then later on they sold cattle from at 236 plus 1. But Texas sold 100 head is all on Friday, 700 for the week, and it was only 235 there on Thursday. But it's going to be pretty interesting to see what that weighted average is and how many cattle sold at that higher price on Friday after we get everything rounded up. But if those cattle indeed fall into a formula type sale, we may not get enough on your negotiated report to really tell what's going on. And likely Texas and Kansas, if they don't get enough on that report, will have to sell off the previous week's report on their formula sales. You formula guys, how you like that sweetheart deal whenever they chicken shit you on the weighted average that is the base price? It's ridiculous. Let's talk about your box beef cutout values. They were higher, quite a bit higher. Your choice cuts weighted average on all of last week's sales up $6.93 at $379.06. Fell off a little bit late in the week. Ended the week with choice cuts about a buck lower than that weighted average at $378.13. Your select weighted average on all your select sales cuts last week was up $5.85 compared to the previous week's weighted average at $360.32. And your late Friday sales on selects were down about $1.70 from that weighted average at $358.65. Choice select spread on the weighted average was $18.74, and all that information based on 592 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings, which is kind of light. Your slaughter for the week, estimated cattle slaughter was 555,000. That's 1,000 less than the previous week. 55,000 head less slaughtered than the same week a year ago. Talk about what else is going on. Big sale at Faith Livestock Auction in Faith, South Dakota here on Monday. They're starting early at 7 o'clock in the morning, expecting around 10,000 head. It's a big calf special, guys. They've got long, big strings. I mean, you can get single source probably to fill your needs on fancy ranch raised calves from western South Dakota there. The Beckman Ranch is bringing in 570 head of blacks and black baldies. They'll weigh 475 to 575. Lamonts are bringing in, and those would be all steers from Beckman's. Lamonts are bringing in 550 head of blacks and black baldies. They'll weigh 400 to 500 pounds. Dorsey's have 500 head. Black calves are bringing in, weigh 375 to 500 pounds. Stratingen Ranch there, 400 head of red-hided, some red baldies in there and red calves from 450 to 550. Wessinger, 400 head of Charolais and blacks coming in, weigh 4.5 to 5.5. Countless more. A lot of big strings and nice consignments there from Faith Livestock Auction in Faith, South Dakota. Get on to DVAuction.com, view that sale starting at 7 o'clock in the morning, and bid right there on DV Auction. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market, brought to you by Specialty Risk Insurance. Your real-time index from DV Auction ended the week after all of your sales there, even on Saturday, at $341.38. And that was down $22.77 for the week. Ouch. But you look at that steer tracker, which is the last 25 sales of 5 head or more that go in the index on the RTI. It was sitting all the way up at $368.95. Just pulled down so much from all those lower sales we had, and it's a 7-day moving average. But latest CME cash feeder cattle index ended at 347.25. That was down 1983 for the week. Talk about your trends in the sale barns. Weekly trends were mostly $20 to $40 lower. Your market was more sharply lower earlier in the week. Like I said, we got a little past midweek point, and your sales were still lower, but they weren't that 20 to 40 lower that we saw on most all your Monday, Tuesday, and even Wednesday sales. So the market should be quite a bit better on these Monday sales because they lost more last week than your late week sales. But look at a big sale that happened there on Friday from a new broadcaster for us, Harriet Livestock Market and Harriet, South Dakota. They had 3,650, In this market, they had some fancy calves, but they had yearlings. And nobody's got a lot of yearlings right now. It's kind of nice to give out the market on that. The market was lower, but they really didn't have any comparable sales the week before to get a good test on it. But they did have 1,300 head consignment in. 1,300 head consignment of yearling cattle coming in off the grass. Wow. And Harriet was your Superior Steel Sales, home of Superior Standard Livestock Equipment, stick out sale of the day. You look at this automated market report through Cattle Market Central, and you see 253 head of 5-weight steers out of Harriet, average 533 with a weighted average price of $470.95. Look at these, 1,100 head of 8-weight feeder steers, averaged $851 at $370.55. That's by far the best we had on 8-weight feeder steers last week. 559 head of the 9-weights, averaged $940 at $339.28. Let's look at the heifers. 133 head of heifers in the 5-weight category, average $520 at $427.84. 132 head of 8-weight heifers, averaged $887 at $326.15. And 362 head of 9-weight steers, or heifers, excuse me, averaged $957 with a weighted average price of $324.33. So good sell there at Harriet. Let's look at some other individual quotes that were impressive. On Friday, St. On's Livestock in St. On's, South Dakota. Justin had 108 steers. Peewees weighed 380 that brought 585. That still sounds impressive, guys, even after your big downs the last 2 weeks. How about Fort Pierre Livestock Auction in Fort Pierre, South Dakota? They sold 91 steers, weighed 643 at 449. Winter, South Dakota, Winter Livestock Auction had an impressive quote. 96 steers, weighed 496 at 516. That's basically 500 pounds. There was a day or two there early last week we couldn't get $5 a pound for them. Fancy is there. And these bring 516. And then let's talk about your most impressive quote that I saw anywhere late last week and over the weekend. And your Macrocin, no BS, top quote for the day. It indeed come out of Harriet Livestock Auction, Harriet, South Dakota. It was 8 loads of those yearling grass steers, 8 loads of them, average 830 pounds and bring 381. It's pretty impressive, guys. That's your feeder flash for Monday.